Hey, you want to learn some cool in-depth stuff about Hatchet that you may not have considered? Well, have I got some cool tricks and combos to show you. Introducing the guide where I explain how I played Hatchet with a 4-player group. So, some of this may not be a good idea with 2 characters. Also, at the end, there will be spoilers, I will warn you. Level 1 stuff. General gameplay. Most of the time, I found myself opening with Favorite and Power Pitch, so I can immediately have a good next turn with Wind and the Favorite up. Sometimes, though, stuff's bonkers in the first room, and there'll be too much unnecessary damage if you're greedily setting up the Favorite, so in those cases, you gotta coordinate with your teammates what stuff you're gonna help immediately kill. Though, I will point out this happens a lot more for 4-player, where the first room can sometimes be a bit of a knife fight in a phone booth because there's so many enemies. In these situations, I usually run in close cuts because instant 6 damage is pretty good. Or if a bunch of stuff is in range, hit him with the Fancy Hat Disorienting Barrage combo, which is also 6 instant damage and Muddle to help shave off those incoming attacks. Also, if there's traps in the room, try not to wait on them. Like, always be looking for opportunities to push an enemy into a trap without getting hurt too much yourself, because traps do so much damage, and as Hatchet, you don't even really sacrifice ability efficiency for pushing. Like, oh, look at it's built into your attacks and moves. Oh my god, look at that move 3 push 2. Oh, that makes them perfectly 3 range away. Wow, what a perfect range for most of your attacks. Otherwise, for the rest of the scenario, you're playing a game of 3s, because 3 is your favorite number. Like, look, a lot of your stuff is range 3 or move 3, maybe even both, so you're pretty much always doing a juggling act of killing stuff within range 3, then moving 3 to your favorite to pick it up again. You generally want to try and be keeping guys at a distance, so really make use of attacking and then backing up, or using your pushes when attacking. You gotta think ahead, look at the monster movement stats, get them to be just outside of their reach and pick them off so you can loot them and murder the next thing. However, you're not supposed to be super far back or anything. It's totally fine to be butt buddies with your red guard. They usually go first and draw most of the aggro anyways. Always be planning ahead and looking for ways to pick your favorite back up as fast as possible. Don't just casually throw it and assume you'll just randomly walk over to it again. Coordinate with your team, tell them to go fast to chip away at an enemy, then go slower to finish it off with the favorite and immediately walk over to it. You can even walk into what looks like a dangerous situation without problem if either A, your teammates go faster than you next round and take the aggro, or B, you go fast next round and get the hell out of there. Ideally, you shoot for throwing the favorite every other turn. If you get back-to-back turns, you're super duper awesome. If you're playing this optimally, you're doing a shitload of damage throughout the scenario and just deleting dudes. So you should be in a pretty good spot to just start using a bunch of lost cards towards the end of the scenario to get a bunch of EXP and trivialize the last room, because you know, using lost cards. Also, as a general rule of thumb, try not to be the last guy out of a room killing stuff. Your movement sucks, so you want to be steadily pushing forwards, like, all the time. So if you can avoid it, don't throw your favorite at something that isn't on a path going forward. A hatchet that has to move backwards or to the sides to grab the favorite is a hatchet that lags behind like crazy. Here's what my hand looked like at level 1. The cards that I pretty much always used were the favorite, care package, center mass, retrieval, power pitch, and close cuts, meaning the rest of the 4 cards I swapped around based on the scenario and or swapped up when I leveled up. So first of all, I want to establish that I found it extremely helpful to take everything that has a move 3, because remember, your movement sucks, so it's nice to have the comfort of constantly having a move 3 available. So even though I really don't like second wind, I bring it anyways. I found when playing with 4 players I never needed healing because 1, I'm usually in the back, and 2, we have a Void Warden. The initiative's good, and besides being a move 3, the bottom is kinda whatever. I didn't get the bonus move that often because you know how 4 players be, pretty inconsistent to ensure that you're the one who gets the kill. If it's more your style, you can totally take extra lift instead of second wind if you want to have another range attack and a burst of movement available instead of reliably having move 3s. The favorite is mandatory, not even gonna explain why I bring this one. Care package and center mass both feel very core because they're both range 3 move 3 cards, making them super reliable bread and butter actions that are almost always useful. Plus they both have extra utility because center mass has a good push and care package is really good at getting rid of poison and wound, and your demolitionist appreciates the earth it makes. Retrieval is kind of a poopy card in a vacuum, but it's your only loot card. It's got terrible initiative and a pretty weak top, but the bottom is real nice. I basically only use the bottom to steal hella coins and insta throw the favorite. Remember, looting is super strong on Hatchet because you can loot your favorite and immediately throw it. But since move 1 sucks, this card is basically the reason why you really want to buy Weathered Boots so much, since it's your only loot card for a while. Power Pitch is how you make wind, and it's another move 3, meaning this card is kind of in a weird spot where it's forced into being a good card, even though in a vacuum it's super average. On the plus side, the top is a great way to close out a scenario by immediately killing something in the last room, making that room much easier to manage. Lastly, Close Cuts is an easy 6 damage without a loss that comes with EXP and good initiative. This card's great, and you can sometimes have turns where you can just run up to grab the favorite, but also get to use Close Cuts. Totally reasonable turn, and it helps your red guard a lot to occasionally be taking hits. Though oftentimes when I'm doing Close Cuts, we end up killing something anyway, so it's not even that dangerous unless you're diving into 2 huge enemies or something. I didn't really use the bottom that much, but there were times I messed up and got hit, so then on the next turn, I used the bottom of Close Cuts to hit them and move away, and oh, what do you know, that makes them perfectly 3 range away. Speaking of 6 damage turns without a loss, you got Fancy Hat and Disorienting Barrage. The Fancy Barrage combo is a little more conditional when compared to Close Cuts, which does 6 damage way more easily. So if you only got 2 characters and there's way less enemies, then you should probably get rid of Barrage for follow through, and then Fancy Hat can be extra lift or something. I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about, 2-player. In my opinion though, Fancy Hat and Disorienting Barrage are both cards that are good enough to bring on their own anyways. Fancy Hat has a really good initiative, and Barrage can help you to distribute damage more evenly if you want to throw the favorite at something with like 4 health and still damage other things. Also, the metal is nice for shaving off a little bit of damage. Stopping Power, also kind of poopy. It's pretty slow, it's got only range 2, but it's your only other attack 3 ranged attack aside from Center Mass, and it becomes a pretty good card if you have Wind Up. Like, this is the card to always play after you make Wind with Power Pitch, and the safest way to shove dudes through traps. Admittedly though, most of the time the wind is just there so you can get EXP in range 3, especially if you throw the favorite, because you don't want to push the enemy with the favorite way back, because that's just delaying when you can get it back. This card can also cause a funny situation where you can shove a monster through a trap in the back, and it dies so far back that you can run up and grab your favorite with the bottom of second wind and be safe from bad guys because they're all now behind you hitting your teammates. I also probably use the bottom like only once or twice. I prefer losses that do damage so you can just kill everything. Unless it's like Disarm or Stun. Immobilize, it's good for Hatchet, but if you got teammates like the Red Guard and Demolitionist, it might not necessarily benefit them that much. Stopping Power's bottom feels more like an oh shit button because you fucked up and know you're going to take a bunch of damage, so use it to get out of there and not take any damage for the turn. Though I will mention that if you have extra lift up, Stopping Power's bottom is pretty funny because you can just fly through the room and stop everything from moving. For the last 3 cards I don't normally bring, they're usually way more situational. If the scenario involves moving around big distances in a short time, like if the objective is run to the exit, or you see a room that has a lot of difficult terrain, then you bring extra lift. Oh yeah, I didn't mention this before, but you can zoom if you use the bottom of extra lift and the top of Fancy Hat. There's a few scenarios where this is actually really good because you move 9 and have shield 2, so you can fly across a room or 2 into a group of enemies and not die. Why would you ever do that? I'm not going to say why, but do be on the lookout for when that situation is useful. And lastly, follow through and double throw were cards that I rarely, if ever, brought along. I don't like follow through because at 4 players, the favorite is pretty much always on the ground. It has bad initiative, and spending wind for movement doesn't give you EXP, so if I'm pushing stuff, I'd rather do it with Center Mass or Stopping Power. Double throw I only ever brought if there was a boss, which obviously doesn't happen all the time. Like, the top just kind of fucking sucks. I can do attack 3, target 2 with Close Cuts without a loss. It's so obvious double throw was balanced around it being range, so they're afraid of 2 cards coming into play here that boost it. Fancy Hat, which is conversely one of my favorite cards, and the Favorite, which is coincidentally my favorite card. But then you might say, well, what the fuck? Power Pitch is also 6 damage on a loss. Are you saying that's bad too? Well, no, because it's all front loaded onto one target, because in case you haven't noticed, killing one dude reduces the total damage output of your enemies versus just harming 2 things and keeping them alive. Thus, hitting multiple things is generally weaker, hence why cards in Gloomhaven that hit multiple targets tend to do more total damage than cards that only hurt one thing. A balance, or good game design.
It was a good game.
Basically, my TLDR is if you're swapping a card out for double throw or extra lift, just look at the scenario and decide what you need. If there's a need for movement, I usually swap out Stopping Power for extra lift, so I still have a way to spend wind and get EXP from it. Plus, I still have the extra lift Fancy Hat combo available. If you're killing a boss, movement may not be as important, so I might get rid of second wind because I hate that card. So I'll play a little more thoughtfully, not constantly assume I have a move 3 available. Items I like. As always in Gloomhaven, stamina Stamina Potion is a busted item. There is no character in the game this is not good on. You can double up on a card or get in an extra turn before resting when you have an odd amount of cards in your hand, so you aren't in this panic, oh shit, I got a short rest situation, all without using an action, because Stamina Pot's an item, so it's super flexible. You don't really have to set anything up, just pop it and go wild. Otherwise, weathered boots, get this shit. Seriously, this item gets you so much extra damage. Wait, what? Let me tell you why. Remember this card, Retrieval? Remember what I just said about your bread and butter being range 3, move 3? Well, Retrieval breaks that rule for no goddamn reason, so you need boots to make it work, because now you can loot stuff 3 hexes away instead of just 2. Next up, Eagle Eye Goggles. This item is super good at any of your multi-attack actions like Close Cuts and Barrage. And sometimes you're in situations where you cannot afford to draw your negative modifiers, like using Lost Attacks, or when a dude's at 6 health, but he's in a really good position, so you want to ensure he dies from throwing your favorite, so you can immediately just run over and do end of turn looting. In which case, Eagle Eyes usually secures that kill. So yeah, really good item all around. In my opinion, those are the first 3 items you should get. Try to have boots and Eagle Eye before scenario 5. And if you're a looting champion, you'll also have the Stamina Potion. I'd say boots are best to get first because it improves your looting, which means it gets you more money in the long run too. After you get those 3, get the Throwing Hammer and whatever armor you like more. Throwing Hammer is really good at buying your team some time because it's a good oh shit button to stop a bad guy, but it can also end up getting even more time if you throw it onto a stopping power and push a stun guy real far back. Once you can hold more small items, I really like the Power Potion to boost multi-hit attack actions. Hey, here's some pretty stupid combos. Hatchet is really good at killing bosses because if you use the bottom of Double Throw with the top of Power Pitch and throw the favorite, that's 18 damage, holy shit. So you better not miss. But don't worry, Eagle Eyes prevents a miss, and Advantage makes it more likely that you draw the crit, so then you're doing 36 damage. And if you got a Void Warden Hype Man blessing you up, like dude, 36 damage isn't even that unlikely, especially if you've been attacking a bunch throughout the scenario so your deck is thinned out by the time you're attacking the boss. Also, if the boss is poisoned and you toss in a Power Potion and draw the crit, this is now 44 damage, which is just stupid. And speaking of Eagle-Eyed Goggles and Power Potion, you can make any of your multi-attacks absolutely stupid by tossing these 2 items in. Because now the entire thing has advantage and +1 attack. Fancy Barrage combo? Holy shit, attack 3, target 3, advantage on everything, that's 9 damage minimum. And then you mono everything, what the f— And remember, these are all ranged attacks, which means at any point during all of this, you can go like, fuck that guy in particular, and yeet the favorite into him. God, this makes the top of Double Throw look so bad, why is this a loss? I mean, I guess you can also do the exact same Fancy at Power Potion Eagle Eye Goggle combo for attack 5, range 4, target 2, advantage, which is— that's right. Next dumb combo. Have you ever seen the bad guys partying together a little too hard? Well, now you can get in there and file a noise complaint by murdering them all with sharp objects. Barrage Bottom into Close Cuts top not only does 6 damage to whatever the hell you're attacking with Close Cuts, but you also end up doing some collateral damage with Barrage Bottom to anything else nearby. This can do so much total damage in a single turn, and even more if other enemies happen to be in good positions. And of course, you can still throw on Power Potion Eagle Eyes with your Close Cuts, so even more damage. Level 2 through 4 cards. So right off the bat, I'm gonna establish that I took Repeat Shot, Fearsome Efficiency, and Overwatch. This is because I looked ahead and planned my level up path, and let me tell you my thought process. Fearsome Efficiency. This card's crazy. Like, I immediately fixated on this card because Hatchet having a bottom ranged attack is bonkers. Doesn't it suck how you waste a turn just equipping the favorite at the start of every scenario? Well, now you can just immediately yeet the favorite on the first turn. But wait, it gets better because this card is the reason why I took Repeat Shot at level 2. You can set up a turn where you throw the favorite with the bottom of Fearsome Efficiency and then hit the same target with the Repeat Shot for a total of 9 damage without a loss. I didn't like Ricochet when I looked at it because first, the initiative sucks, and second, the bottom I felt like I was never going to use because I wanted to take Overwatch at level 4. Which has a bonkers bottom that shits all over Ricochet. Granted, I do see value in that you can use Fancy Hat's bottom with Ricochet to do 3 damage to 2 things, so of course it's another good combo for the whole shebang of the favorite, Fancy Hat, Power Potion, and Eagle Eyes. God, Double Throw top sucks. Ricochet's the same thing, but 1 less damage and not a loss. Anyways, Overwatch is fucking stupid. God, I love this card. The top, it's alright, pretty good, blah initiative, but holy crap, the bottom is so good. First of all, at minimum, this is 10 damage, but it's always way more than that because at this point, you took some perks, and your attack modifier deck is looking pretty good. But also, remember that these are still ranged attacks, so you can do a lot of dumb shit with them. Example, did you just pick up your favorite last turn? Well, fucking immediately throw it again with Overwatch for an easy repeat shot next turn. Oh hey, I got a throwing hammer that can add stun to a ranged attack. Oh boy, time to put it on Overwatch and stun an enemy in the middle of their turn. And by the way, remember that stun goes away at the end of the target's next turn, meaning you've now removed a threat for 2 whole turns by just standing there without even using an action.
He's just standing there.
Also, remember that there's more items you can unlock, and while I won't spoil them, let me tell ya, there's more stuff that can buff your attacks, and Overwatch gets really stupid. Like, oh my god, it just keeps getting better and better. And this isn't even mentioning that if you're strengthened, love you Void Warden, all your Overwatch attacks have advantage. Do you know how fucking stupid this is? Like, what? And you can also still fancy hat the Overwatch attacks. And look at your perks. Sometimes you just randomly stun shit anyways. Like, what the hell? Also, remember before when I brought up the Fearsome Efficiency repeat shot combo? Yeah, if you happen to kill something with Overwatch before your turn, this combo now does 11 damage and gives you 2 EXP without a loss. This is also super flexible because say you throw the favorite with Overwatch, then when it hits your turn you repeat shot that guy to kill them, which activates the bottom of Fearsome Efficiency so you can now attack something else. Alternatively, you can also have your Void Warden grant you an attack to kill something to enable Fearsome Efficiency, but Void Warden, you slow as hell. I'm a self-made hatchet. I can get my own out-of-turn order kills, thank you very much. Actually, speaking of Void Warden, they can force enemies to move and cause your Overwatch to activate, so that's fucking hilarious. Also Void Warden, giving you a range attack lets you throw your favorite, so if you just picked your favorite back up from end of turn looting, this is another way to immediately throw it. One thing to note though, you gotta be a little careful with Overwatch because since it's giving you ranged attacks, do be careful not to be the one taking all the aggro while it's up because you don't want to be in disadvantage for all those ranged attacks. This was never really an issue for me because with 4 players, the red guards usually front and center anyways, but just want to point that out. Anyways, I can totally understand why most people just take Rip from the Flesh at first glance, because yeah, fast card that can loot or heal obviously looks good, and yeah, it's pretty good. But holy shit, people are sleeping on Overwatch. Like, Overwatch usually does way more than 10 damage. Like, Jesus, it can do like 20 damage because of all the fancy hat and strength and shenanigans, plus it also ends up doing other crazy shit if you got the right items. Basically, ignore all the text here. Overwatch really just says, no, you can't just attack everything when it's not your turn. You'll make the game too easy. Oh, Hatchet go brrr. Here's what I do with my hand when I start leveling up. At level 2, I was super all over the place depending on scenario. Sometimes I swapped out stopping power with repeat shot if the scenario doesn't have traps, and either barrage or hat if the first room doesn't immediately have 3 dudes to attack. And if I was feeling cheeky, I would swap out second wind. Level 3 with Fearsome Efficiency, same deal. I cut out some combination of 2 from those 4 cards depending on the scenario. At this point, I'd sometimes take out power pitch and stopping power because repeat shot's bottom can replace power pitch, and I don't need wind with no stopping power. Then at level 4 with Overwatch, I tossed out everything except fancy hat because now I really don't need stopping power because I can spend wind on Overwatch's top before using the bottom. Plus, one attack is usually more useful than push, and you can still push with center mass. Fancy hat is going to be the flex card in case you need something else like double throw or extra lift, but man, having a 12 initiative card is super nice, and the bottom is insane with Overwatch, so yeah, it tends to stay. So the short summary of my build is that I take everything that maximizes the gameplay loop of move 3s and range 3s while constantly prioritizing trying to have high damage by throwing the favorite. And occasionally dumb cheese happens like the level up cards or running into close cuts. As a result, this build, while really strong for high damage all the time, doesn't tend to make a lot of EXP, especially since so many of the core bread and butter cards like Center Mass, Care Package, Retrieval don't get you EXP. To offset this, since you're usually just decimating stuff, you can feel more free to just stupidly use a ton of lost cards later in the scenario to squeeze out more EXP. Perks I took. Right off the bat, always remove 2 neg1 cards twice. No ifs, ands, or buts. This is objectively the best thing you can do for your attack deck for that sweet, reliable damage. After that, normally I'd say to add 3 + 2 win cards, because it's the only way you can further increase the likelihood of not drawing negative since you can't remove the last neg1 and neg2. Plus, randomly having win up is always nice. But, specifically for this dumb Overwatch build I'm doing, make sure you get both perks that replace stuff with stun cards before level 4. A big part of this is because in Jaws of the Lion's rulebook, there's a change to advantage from normal Gloomhaven where it says you can pick what modifier you want. So if you're strengthened, Overwatch can absolutely stun dudes for 2 turns like no tomorrow. But yeah, normally you pretty much always want to be taking the perks that just add more damage instead of stuff like stun, because you can't rely on stuns coming up and being useful, since under normal gameplay circumstances, you're usually already doing stuff to avoid getting hit in the first place, so flipping a stun ends up being redundant and you'd rather just have flipped a card that did more damage. So without Overwatch, take all the +2 win cards first. Force, then start replacing your zeros with more damage like +2 muddle, +1 wound, and +1 poison. The immobilize and push aren't really that consistently good, but push can actually be useful with Overwatch since you can push the monster away right after its movement so it doesn't attack anything. Super funny. So to summarize, remove your negatives first. If you're Overwatch build and have a way to strengthen like Void Warden, take stuns. Otherwise, add the 3 wins to reduce your deck's chance of drawing negatives, then replace zeros with muddle, wound, and poison since those are the highest damage. At that point, you can choose to be more consistent by continuing to replace zeros, or you can be a high roller and replace +1s with +3s. This is a spoiler warning. From this point on, I'm going to be talking about cards from level 5 onwards, plus all late game items. You have been warned. Okay, so I only played up to level 8, but the cards I took were Quick Turnaround, Excessive Force, and Shrapnel. This is also the part of the guide where card choice is a little more up in the air, because I was kind of just going like, that one looks cool, I'm going to pick that one. But I'm still going to walk you through my thought process. At level 5, even though you have to take this, I do want to point out this card further improves Overwatch because you can push a guy away after his move so he doesn't get to attack. Quick Turnaround is definitely one of those cards where at first glance you're like, wait, this is obviously better than Bombardment, why would I not just take this? So that's why I took it. And I'm always a fan of cards with a good range attack and a move 3 bottom. Plus, it's fast and a perfect addition to my playstyle. Excessive Force and Shrapnel are weirder choices, so let me tell you what was going through my head. So at this point, one of my teammates gets a way to make wind. I'm not going to say which other Jaws class because this video is supposed to be spoilers for Hatchet, not the others. And my attack modifier deck was starting to make more wind, so I was like, well, Excessive Force is just better fearsome efficiency in a lot of situations, so yeah, I'll take it. Worked out really well and had way less positioning problems when doing the fearsome efficiency repeat shot combo. I'd imagine Brutalize is obviously the better card most of the time, but in our group with 4 players, I almost never got any use out of cards like Follow Through and Repeat Shot unless it was me doing the bottom attack into an immediate repeat shot. Because with 4 dudes running around wrecking shop on the bad guys, enemies usually are dropping left and right, so my favorite was almost never on a bad guy and pretty much always on the ground. I feel like if you have 2 characters though, Brutalize is a super obvious card choice. So since I was realizing that wind was never an issue anymore, I was like, shit, Shrapnel is crazy if you have wind. Like, this is a ridiculous amount of total damage. It makes Bombardment look super weak in comparison. Also, since Shrapnel tends to wound everything anyways, I went back to using the old favorite and using the new one for its bottom to make that wind. But also because at this point, I bought item 25, you know, the almighty barbed chain. So now I can pull dudes to me and then hit them with the bottom of the new favorite, which is a super strong turn because you're doing good damage and essentially just stunning that guy for a turn. And again, I realize that Shrapnel probably isn't as good at lower player counts because you might not have that many targets all the time, but man, Shrapnel did huge work for our 4-player group. I do want to point out though that another funny way to do massive single target damage without using double throw is to have the top of Excessive Force active and combine the top of Bombardment with either the bottom of Fearsome Efficiency or Fancy Hat and just shred one guy with all of the attacks. This is a total of 19 damage either way, but it goes up to 25 if you pop a power potion and item 16, the Robes of Evocation. And probably even more than that with Eagle Eyes and a really good modifier deck. But I don't really care for that when double throw favorite with Fearsome Efficiency usually does 36 damage. Especially because we got a Void Warden and people with Oak Charms. In terms of late game items, what I was actually running around with in our campaign wasn't the most optimal because my friends could use some items better than I could. But if it were up to me, my final item loadout would probably look like this. And yep, Robes is literally just there to buff Shrapnel. I swear to God we usually have spare elements up for just no reason. Barbed Chain I already explained with the new favorite, but you can also use this to move enemies out of position with Overwatch. Ring of Strength, obvious choice, is there for mostly Overwatch, but you can also use it for whatever the hell else. And Stun Powder is also fairly obvious because you use it with Overwatch. And this was my final level 8 hand when we beat the campaign. And finally, if I had to pick a card for level 9, I'd probably go with Heartseeker. I don't really have a problem with grabbing the favorites. I don't see the value there with Executioner's Axe. The top is pretty good loss, but I don't think it's level 9 worthy. Meanwhile, Heartseeker is a nuts top attack. Who doesn't like stun with good damage and sometimes wound? And the bottom is great for bosses when I need to stack myself with Bless before doing the double throw combo. So yeah, that's gonna be it for my Hatchet guy. Comment below what you think. Tell me what you did as a Hatchet and tell me if I'm actually a goddamn idiot. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe, and hit the bell to get notified of all our future videos. And as always, a huge shout out to our patrons, starting with the Brads. We got Alvin, Brian, Charlie, Dylan, John, Manuel, Marius, Max, Quackalope. Wait, holy Quackalope. Oh my god, yo, what's up, man? Sam, Vomsy, Codename 1. And then for the Chads, we got Clifford, Jennifer, Jeremy, Quentin, Ryan, and Travis. Then we got our Thad, Aaron, and our mad lads, Jeff and Z. Thank you all so much for your support, and if you would like to support our channel, don't forget to become a patron.